Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. State of My Sports.
Welcome to the State of My Sports Detroit Pistons season preview. If this is your first time watching or listening, thank you. What we are, State of My Sports is a Michigan sports podcast that we record live every Tuesday night. We record live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch so we can have our listeners be part of the conversation and not just be something that they listen to after the fact. If they want to join us live, that's great. If they want to listen after, that works too. But we like to try to get other people's opinions, and we just love what we do, but we want to continue to grow it. Before we get in, if this is your first time, please subscribe to the podcast on YouTube. Our channel, we send videos out. We break every segment down the best that we can. Also on podcast format, like and review and subscribe to that. Now let's get into our 2022-2023 Pistons season preview. Really, the way that we like to do our season previews is kind of start out with what happened last season. Last year, the Pistons went 22-60 to finish 26th out of 30 teams in the NBA, 14th out of 15 in the East, 1 win ahead of the Orlando Magic, and 2 wins ahead of the Houston Rockets, but finished last in the Central Division. Points per game, they were 28th out of 30 with 104.8. They allowed 112.5, which was 22nd of 30 teams in the league. So just it was a difficult year, I would say, but they started to gain that momentum. At a 23-59 overall record, that's nothing to be really excited about. 28 games back, just nothing on paper tells you that this team is making progress. But one thing that I thought was the most important is they started to get a buzz in the city of Detroit again. That's something that's really important. When the Pistons are good, people come, and it's a loud place. Obviously, we'll see how Little Caesars Arena is during playoff time with the Red Wings and Pistons, but Detroit they have very loyal fans. And what they did was they brought in the 18th best attendance. I know it's not that exciting, but when you're that bad, but you still have that growing attendance, that's exciting. That's when you know it's starting to get some buzz. That's when you know that this team is going to be fun again. And we've been saying that this team will be fun but not good for a couple years now. I think it can kind of change to being a little bit better. How good is what we want to figure out, right? That's kind of the gist of last year heading into this year. What last year really did, in my opinion, was it showed us that Cade Cunningham is going to be a star in this league. And what that does is it set the foundation of what this rebuild is going to be built on. It is going to be built on and around Cade Cunningham. Did he win Rookie of the Year? No. I think he should have. I think he was really good. He put up some pretty good numbers. He had a month that was better than Jordan's first rookie year, right?
Yeah.
Like, he did some really exciting things, but it wasn't consistent. And the slow start with the injury kind of played a role in not winning the thing. But for the people that sit and watch the Pistons, that know the Pistons, that live and breathe the Pistons, we know that we got the right guy. Now it's just waiting for the league to understand that, and how they're going to build around him is what we're starting to see. And I think that kind of starts with the additions and subtractions. Let's start with the subtraction, really the biggest one. There was others and stuff, but the big one was Jeremy Grant. They traded him to the Portland Trailblazers, along with the rights to Ismail Kamagate, doesn't matter to me, in exchange for the draft rights to Gabriel Procida and the 2025 first-round pick via the Milwaukee Bucks, a 2025 second-round pick, and a 2026 second-round pick. So, they got rid of Jeremy Grant. He was a important piece of what they were doing, I would say. You and Ryan kind of convinced me that he was better to have on the roster, I think, at times. But I think it was a good time to move on from him. In my opinion, it feels late, but they did it, and that's where we're at now. What did you think about the return that they got for Jeremy Grant, just kind of on paper here?
Yeah, I mean, it helped us out in the draft too a little bit, right? This year by having extra parts to move around with, and being able to jump up and get Jalen Duren, and that was another huge pick for what we got going into this season. I had higher hopes for the Pistons going into last season, with Cade being the number one pick. I feel like that filled a huge void that this team had, and it did. We saw it, like you said, we saw flashes. He's a bona fide NBA player. I wouldn't be surprised if he makes an all-star team in the next couple of years. If Detroit can turn into a winning program, and I'm not saying make the playoffs, but compete with one of those final spots. Maybe be one of those last teams that get the one game play in.
It's 10 now, right? Or something like that. Yeah,
10 teams at conference. So I thought Jeremy Grant was going to be a good go-to veteran with a group of boys out there, we'll say.
And he didn't. It didn't seem to happen though.
No.
At least 2 years ago, it happened.
Yeah,
that he was the leader and stuff. And last year was a little bit of disappointment, I think, for what we thought Jeremy Grant could bring to the team.
Yeah, I don't think he was fully invested on the season.
It didn't fit, right? Yeah.
And health-wise, he had some how serious of injuries going on, or maybe how minor is the bigger story. And again, when you're down that quick and out of it that fast, we're talking playoff hopes here.
Mm-hmm.
You start to see a little bit less usage of your star players, right? And especially knowing that they had maybe some trade potential out of him. Is he maybe leaving the window of his prime? We'll see. We've seen players leave Detroit and put up big seasons their first year out of that that nucleus, I guess. That it's been a rough go around since we last seen them compete in the playoffs and and make an Eastern Conference final, let alone win a championship. But I think what we have gotten in return for what we got out of Jeremy Grant, it's all smiles right now upstairs, right?
Yep. No, I agree completely. And I think, like, it's not necessarily about losing the star that, Jeremy Grant could be. I don't think he is, but some people do. But the addition side. So, Nerlens Noel, Alec Burks, they got in a trade. Bojan Bogdanovic, right? Is that how you say it?
Yep.
Kevin Knox, all in like the offseason, and then obviously the draft with Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren. Outside of the picks here, I want to like specifically talk about the additions through trade and free agency. Which one do you think fits the most with what we're doing here, and is actually a quietly good addition? Is it Bogdanovic?
I'm gonna put my money on Bogdanovic all day. I mean, he's gonna be our top paid player on the roster right now. He's a veteran in the league. He's a great scorer both on and off the ball. This is a three-point shooter that we could definitely add. He comes with size. We can put him on just about anybody's 1 through 4. Not saying he's going to lock down a point guard.
Yeah.
But he comes from that European-style basketball background, and the guy can play. He's going to score. As for the other guys, I mean, Kevin Knox came out with a lot of hype. I think he went to Kentucky. Got drafted by the Knicks, and I don't know if he's had any marquee game in the NBA. This might be one of those things where he's got a second crack at it in a different organization. Maybe he finds some playing time. I think it's going to be tough for him to see much of the floor. Alex Burks is good. That's a good addition. That's something good, solid to have on the bench. Nerlens Noel, same thing. High hopes, a lot of praise coming out of Kentucky. Got hurt right away. I think he was not a first overall pick, I don't think, but he was up there. I think he got drafted by.
Was it the same year as Bagley, or no?
Maybe. Did he? Yeah, because I think he got drafted. Did he get drafted by Oklahoma City?
Yeah, I honestly don't know.
But anyway, I mean, Noel hasn't quite lived up to his potential yet. Big body, can kind of do a little bit of everything, but plays good defense too. I think these are guys that might look at Dwayne Casey as having an opportunity to get some knowledge from, and he might get a little bit of use out of these guys. But okay. I thought the team was already deep before adding these guys outside of Bogdanovic.
Yeah. And then the draft side, taking Jaden Ivey in 5th overall, perfect pair for Cade. Like this, he's more he's the athlete, right?
Yeah.
He's the one that can.
He's the Energizer Bunny, the lithium kind, not your regular Duracell, but like he's high wire, high athleticism, high explosiveness guy.
He has the potential to be a rich man, Jeremy Grant, right? Is that fair?
Oh, completely different level.
Is it
of
completely different
athleticism.
player? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he got a lot of comparisons, a lot of comps coming out of college. Ja Morant.
Oh, yeah.
Derrick Rose.
All right.
That level of athleticism. Unfortunately, the Pistons played Memphis in the preseason, and I watched part of that game, and he's a long ways away from Ja Morant.
Okay.
But not a long ways.
But
he's got some time.
That's what he has.
Ja Morant came into the league and did his thing right off the get-go. It's going to take Jaden Ivey a little bit of time to find his space and find his rhythm. But just in these preseason games, I mean, you see it. He's faster than anybody out there.
Love that.
He's going to be a tough guy to guard, and he gets up and down the court quick, and he gets into little spaces in the court faster than anybody else.
He single-handedly made this team way more exciting.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, he's going to complement Cade well.
Yeah.
Because Cade, he's not.
He's like the opposite. He's not the athletic one.
He's not like super fast and flashy, but he somehow slowly gets to an opening, and he's got the size to create a shot and score inside and outside. And I think Jaden Ivey is going to complement that very well.
And then Weaver took advantage of the Knicks by taking Kemba Walker's contract to trade up by taking Jalen Duren. Is that his name, Jalen?
Jalen, yeah.
Jalen Duren.
Yep.
13th overall. Raw and young, but has the body to play in the NBA now, right?
Oh, he's a man out there already.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's built for the big boys in the league. I think he's gonna fit well. He's a great rebounder, defender, and he can score down low. I mean, nobody's gonna be able to keep him from getting up to the rim. Young.
Yeah.
Again, might take a little bit of time to develop a strong NBA game, but I think he's exactly what we need to complement your Isaiah Stewarts and Marvin Bagleys of the world.
This trade up and pick reminded me a lot of the Lions trading up and selecting Jameson Williams.
Yeah.
It was like,
similarities
is
there.
it a payoff right away? Obviously, you hope so, but it doesn't have to be.
It's an investment.
It's an investment. It really is. And
Yep.
when you're going to pick a guy in that section there of the, just outside the top 10, that's what you're going for. And he's young, so he's 18 still.
Yeah.
So he's going to be probably the youngest guy in the league, I would assume, because you have I think he really reclassified and went to Memphis a year earlier, I'm guessing, based on his age.
Yeah.
So that's exciting that you just have a guy that you can develop, and a guy that he doesn't need to develop physically. It's just understanding the game, and there's no better place to learn than the NBA. I believe that. That's why you don't have a legitimate feeder system, because you want your young guys to learn at the NBA. You know what I mean?
I would hate to see him have to spend any time down in the G League unless it's a rehab assignment.
Okay.
Right? If say something happens and he has to spend some time on IR or whatever they call it. In the
I
NBA.
don't know what they call it in the NBA.
I mean,
Load
they get
management. Or
yeah. I was gonna say they get random days off for the fun of it. No, I expect him to spend a lot of time in the NBA, and we get to ride out a rookie contract. And like you said, there's a lot of players in the NBA that don't get picked in the top 10 that have really good careers in the NBA.
Yeah.
And I think that's worth noting, is drafting a guy that wasn't maybe a lottery pick. He was probably on a lot of teams' bubbles.
Yeah.
But finding him in the middle of that round, and it'd be nice to see some return, because let's face it, and this is nothing at Jaden Ivey or Cade Cunningham, but historically the Pistons have struggled drafting them early in the first round.
Yeah.
And we've seen guys maybe not hold up to that potential or not last very long on the squad or in the team. And we've seen other teams pick other players after them that have gone on to be career NBA All-Stars.
Mm-hmm.
Is this what we got? I don't know. I think it's way too early to tell.
Yeah.
But I like our odds.
Yep, for sure. Speaking of odds, we got the futures basically here. So to win the NBA title, the Pistons are sitting at plus 70,000, which is actually worse than it was this time last year at plus 50,000. They are plus 25,000 to win the East, plus 20,000 to win the division, and plus 850 to make the playoffs. With their over-under set at 29.5, the over is minus 105. The under is minus 115. So Vegas doesn't think this team's going to be good. Now, do I necessarily think it's going to be good? No, but it seems a little disrespectful with these numbers. Like, plus 850 to make the playoffs. Like, I might put 100 on that.
Yeah, I don't know if that speaks more to what they think of the Eastern Conference as a whole.
That's fair.
I think it's top heavy. You got 3 teams that are probably going to be the top 3 teams. It's a little bit more predictable in the NBA, but the West is getting significantly stronger, and we're seeing a lot of shift and tide from teams that were there in the playoffs for years and years and years and years, now starting to fall out of that window and other teams jumping up. So I think I don't know. I'm a Pistons fan.
Yeah.
I think they're getting the raw end of the deal. I think they're going to surprise some teams, but it might be next year that they do that. That they make that big splash.
It might be a year early, yeah.
Yep. I think just like any other season, health and what are we going to get out of Bogdanovich, and can all of these young guys collectively play both sides of the ball and score more points. We got to score more points.
You got to score. Yeah, what was the points per game was
104?
104.8. Like that's not good in this league of no defense. Like you got to be able to put it in the basket for sure. So what are your season goals? Like I think we want to be a little careful on setting goals for like the Red Wings and the Pistons, and because of what happened to us with the Lions, and then the Tigers too. It was like we had all these expectations and goals, and all of a sudden it was just like, oh boy, that ended quickly. So I don't want to like be overly aggressive, but for my sake, for the Red Wings, it was play meaningful hockey mid-March. Early to mid-March. That was my goal for the Red Wings. Now they're playing good to start, but like, is that what the expectations should be? Like, be playing meaningful basketball where you have a chance to get that play-in game, to be a top 10 team, top 8 team. Like, it's a different league, obviously, but where do you think that this team should be based on where we're at in the rebuild?
Yeah, I think the NBA season's pretty long, right? In my opinion. When you compare it to college football and college basketball and all these other, the NFL, it's hard to tell until the end of the season what meshes. So if we're out of it right away and they have a poor season, then we're going to find out like what we're going to do in the draft. I don't want to see us have to rely on another lottery pick and hope that we get the first 2 or 3 pick draft position.
Although this would be a great year to get number 1 right here.
Yeah.
But you don't want to think about that at this point.
Yeah, a couple of guys. Shoot. Yeah.
Is it just playing meaningful basketball throughout the season? Because with the play-in tournament, you got a little more opportunity, right?
Oh, yeah.
So is there 16 or 15 teams in the conference?
Yep.
And 10 teams make it.
Yeah.
Whether you got compete, right? Like be in that conversation.
Be the sixth worst team.
Yeah.
Right. I hope they're there.
Yeah.
I think unlike the Tigers and the Red Wings and the Lions, we've had this hopeful optimism based off of the youth of our roster, the draft picks that we've acquired, the team that we're rebuilding with, and we've set our expectations kind of high. The NBA, you can get further with a younger team if everything works out.
Yeah.
We've seen it with Golden State. It didn't take them very long. Clay, Steph Curry, obviously Durant came in, but they had their moments without him too.
Yep.
Minnesota is another team. The T-Wolves, they've kind of put some things together. Memphis, the same thing. They're doing it with just the right picks make the right team mold, and they're getting to the playoffs. I'm not saying the Pistons are a playoff team, but I like what they're doing, and if that's the trend that the NBA is going to go in for the next few years, because we're starting to see some of these old NBA All-Stars not form, their mega teams anymore, right? So now we're getting into a new wave of players. It would be nice to see them compete for a playoff spot. But again, I'm also very optimistic because we hardly beat the Magic last year.
Yeah. So Dwayne Casey has the 20th best odds at plus 3,000 to win Coach of the Year. What are your thoughts on Dwayne Casey? Like, is this his last chance to show something, or because he's had 2 bad years after coming off of getting fired by another team. So where are we at with Dwayne Casey? Because I hear grumblings about him, but I wonder if that's fair. It feels like kind of like the Jeff Blashill thing where he just doesn't have any talent. Like, this is part of the rebuild. We want to know, in a couple years, what he is. But it feels like there's a lot of impatientness here with the Pistons, where if he puts in another 23, 24 win season, that's not good enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know that we've seen enough of Dwayne Casey, even in his coaching career, develop young players yet, right? When he was successful in Toronto, that happened to be the year that Kawhi Leonard came in for one season and they won a championship.
Well, they lost the championship. They lost that year.
Lost in the
They
finals?
lost under Dwayne Casey, and then he got fired, and then they won that following
Oh, they
year.
won the following year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So going with that,
Yeah.
I forgot that he wasn't the coach.
Yeah, he won Coach of the Year, then got fired.
Got fired. So he's 20th to win it. Well, I don't know that he'll win it again.
No,
I think maybe that's the mistake that was made on the vote collectors for that award. Yeah, I'm not even looking to put any money on that bet.
No. So then Jaden Ivey, his odds to win Rookie of the Year are 5th best at plus 850. Duren is 12th at plus 3,500. And then Cade, 5th best odds to win Most Improved Player at plus 2,000. Which one would you put your money on? Is it Jaden Ivey at plus 850 to win Rookie of the Year?
I think that's probably the safest pick out of any of those.
Yeah.
I don't know how. Again, I thought Cade was robbed of Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I agree.
Again, that just came down to Detroit falling so far in the standings.
Yep.
So I don't know that I'd really classify him as Most Improved Player. But if he comes out and balls out, I guess if that puts you in that category, go for it.
The league will look at him at that, right?
And I feel like, was Ja Morant Most Improved Player last year? Somebody got it that
was good the year before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird,
had high hopes. So that's kind of one of those kick below the waist things to give to the guy that was the number 1 pick.
Yeah.
In his second year. So yeah, give me Jaden Ivey.
All right. So wrapping it up here, what will the weaknesses be for this team?
Ooh, scoring, consistent scoring.
Okay.
Yep. And with that, I guess defense. I know that it's kind of bland, but you got to outscore these other teams, and a lot of teams in the NBA are averaging 110 points a game.
Yeah.
And if we're going to be averaging 104, we're not going to be outscoring many teams. So yeah, I think it's the consistent scoring. You got a lot of guys that can score. There's a lot of guys that have proven to score, and now you just added another guy in the draft that's going to want to score. And now you brought in Bogdanovich, who's going to be shooting the ball.
Yeah.
He is fearless.
Along with Sadiq Bey, who's a good shooter too.
Yeah, and I mean, he's had 2 stellar shooting years from behind the three-point line. Isaiah Stewart, for whatever reason, he's been adding a three-pointer to his repertoire. I think he'll probably tone that down a notch when it gets into the meat of the season.
Do you think he's eventually going to be the odd man out?
Isaiah Stewart?
Because, in Duren, you got New Orleans Noel,
Bagley,
who are more traditional, I guess, centers, right?
Yeah, and I mean Bagley can kind of spot up and shoot from a lot of spots too on the court.
Yeah,
and I think he's out the first 4 weeks though.
Okay,
Bagley is. So I think that obviously gives Stewart some free room. And
is Stewart a center? Yeah, he is a center.
Center, power forward, however you want to list it. I think he's still going to play a vital role. There's a lot of bigs in the Eastern Conference, so we're going to have a guy that's out there getting scrappy and getting rebounds and maybe flustering some of these guys on the defensive side of the ball. And I mean, he has shown moments where he can get his own points too if the ball comes his way. But I don't think we'll have to rely on him as an offensive threat. So maybe his playing time gets cut a little bit short, but he's going to be out there hustling. I like that about him.
Yeah.
I don't want to see him go.
Yeah,
I like the
definitely.
young.
Yep.
I like the young nucleus we have. I could see Noel just not getting enough playing time.
Yeah.
Because of him. So I think that'll be an interesting combination to look at, especially when Bagley's healthy, and if Jalen Duren, doesn't have to get sent down to the G League. We got a full roster, man, and it's deep and.
Which is nice, right?
It is. It is. I mean, the NBA season again. It's a little bit long. It's grindy, and guys are going to get their regular, weekday games off of rest, load management. So yeah, I don't know.
What do you think the biggest strengths will be for this team?
Biggest strengths.
Is it just going to be like the way they compete day in and day out because they're so young?
Yeah,
like they haven't got that NBA like, I don't want to play today type thing yet.
Right, and I think they're trying to get back to that old Detroit grind.
Yeah.
Hustle, work, score.
Which would be great.
Play some defense. I think their strength is their backcourt.
Okay.
The guards. I think we're going to have a big year from 20 feet out. I think we're going to have guys knocking down shots. I imagine they're going to have their nights where they shoot the ball a lot and it's just not dropping.
Yeah.
Low field goal percentage nights. But I think they're going to be shooting a lot. I expect them to score more, but it's all going to run through the guards. So, yeah, between Cade and Ivy, that's probably the strength of this team right now.
So my last question, then we'll wrap this up, is who are they trying to be like? Who are they trying to become that people would be like? Because obviously the NBA is built on stars, and everybody has the Warriors shoot. The Bucks have the Greek Freak and just dominate down low. It's like they all have their thing. What are the Pistons? What is their thing going to be? And who would you compare it to in the league right now that's having success? Is it the Boston Celtics?
I don't think you can really put Golden State and Detroit in the same sentence.
Yeah.
Because that's something special that they have, especially with Clay. We're gonna look back and that's a generational player.
Yeah.
And I don't think we have that guy.
Yeah.
But if you look at what runs the team's offenses, it's hard not to match them up with Golden State.
Yeah.
They don't have a solidified big man down low that you got to run the ball through, post player. They've kind of run just a smaller lineup overall. Again, I'm not putting Cade or Jaden Ivey with Steph Curry. We're not gonna go down that road. Boston.
I guess the way I've looked at Boston as a comparison is like great at nothing but really good at everything.
Yeah.
That seems like what the Pistons might end up being.
Totally true. And I don't know, there were a few years ago too with the Utah Jazz.
Yeah.
They had Rudy Gobert or whatever, but they had guards and 3-point shooters, and they played a slow enough pace of ball that made them somewhat of a defensive team.
Yeah.
But it was because they limited how many possessions the other team got to in a way. But yeah, out of recency, there's teams that are just using their youth and getting the most out of their draft picks, kind of like Memphis, but they're all kind of built a little bit different.
Yeah.
But Boston's a good comparison. Kind of like, I don't know, Miami Heat, they got Jimmy Butler.
Okay.
But they don't have a bunch of stars.
Yeah.
They just so happen to play a specific brand of basketball.
Yep.
But I like the direction they're going. They're kind of using their youth, and hopefully we get some stuff out of these picks. You're seeing Golden State too. They got to reload. They're not going to be leaning on these veterans anymore. So Jordan Poole made a big splash. He kind of came out of nowhere. So if we can get a little bit more out of these guys, the future's bright. But hopefully we model into a playoff team.
Yeah, I'm anxious to watch some of this team this year. I really am. I want to see compete. I want it to be fun.
Yeah.
And I don't think the NBA is really fun regular season. That's why you really want to get into, be competitive and be in meaningful basketball games after Christmas and into March.
Right.
That is, I think, where I'll start watching and paying attention, because I'm not big into just watching basketball on a night that I know that they don't even want to be there.
Oh, especially when the when the NFL season's wrapping up, then you're getting into the crunch time. You're getting into that key period at the end of the season where you're trying to make a playoff push for these NBA teams. You really know a lot about the team too when it comes to like February 1st.
Yeah.
You get through enough games where if you're unhealthy, you'll know. If your team's bad, you'll know.
Yep.
But if there's some bright moments in there early on, again, just be competitive. There's a lot of good teams in the Eastern Conference that didn't do a whole lot. And I just don't feel like the ones that made the playoffs really dropped off that far.
Okay.
Not too many like huge, big splash moves. I feel like a lot of the players in the Western Conference that moved around in the West or got re-signed. There's so many big deals right now. So, again, it just comes down to getting the most out of these young guys because eventually we're going to start having to pay.
Yeah.
Luckily, we're not paying contracts like Blake Griffin's anymore, even though we probably still ow him something right now, which is sad. But I just seen he signed somewhere else. Chicago Bulls, maybe?
Was it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So he's still bouncing around, which is just incredible. But yeah, I hope we can compete. It'd be nice to catch a playoff. I think one of those play-in games would be cool. I just don't know if they're quite ready for a full series and on national TV. That might kind of be tough to watch.
Yeah, and then you start getting into is it worth getting into that purgatory, or maybe just get lucky in the lottery? Like, I know that's a tough thing to talk about in a preview, is like where this team's going to finish. I don't want to say tank or anything like that, but sometimes it is better to
trust the process.
Yeah, right.
That's the NBA way.
Yeah, to be not in the playoffs, but not bad either.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and fit in that mold of, hey, we're going to get a top 7 pick, a top 4 pick, and fall in that line and continue to add talent.
Yeah, and I kind of felt that's where we were last year. And if you would have asked me to give you their record from last year, I wouldn't have come up with those numbers. It's hard to remember that they were that bad.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the season, they were pretty dang good.
Yeah.
And a couple guys had good solid years. Cade, and especially Sadiq Bey. And had tough games against other teams that were fighting for, lateral movements in the playoff seeding and to get in. So hopefully they can just turn that tide and be one of those teams this year and maybe surprise a few people. We'll see.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you guys for watching. Again, follow us on all of our social media and our YouTube. Thank you.